Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we are focusing on a figure you almost certainly know, but we're betting you don't fully appreciate the mechanics of how she got where she is.
hmm
We're talking about Amy Poehler.
And we really need to set the ground rules early on this one. If you're just picturing Leslie Knope eating waffles or, the cool mom in her pink tracksuit from Mean Girls,
Yeah.
you are only seeing like the very, very top layer. We've pulled together biographies, production logs, old improv manifestos, even some financial data to look at Poehler not just as a funny actress, but as a comedy architect.
A comedy architect. I love that. That's the lens we're using today. We are looking at a builder, someone who took a very specific, almost esoteric set of rules from the Chicago improv scene in the 1990s and applied them to build a production empire that has, and I don't think this is an overstatement, fundamentally altered the trajectory of women in comedy.
And just for context for everyone listening, it is January 2026. We're recording this fresh off the news that Poehler just took home the first ever Golden Globe for Best Podcast.
Oh, yeah, for her show Good Hang with Amy Poehler,
Exactly.
which feels like the perfect bookend, right?
Yeah.
She conquered sketch comedy, she conquered the sitcom, she became a serious director, and now, here in 2026, she's dominating audio.
Yes. And that is the mission for us today. We want to trace that line. We want to show you how a philosophy, an improv structure called the Herald, and we'll get into the weeds on that in a bit,
Okay.
how that became the blueprint for her entire business strategy. It's about how improvisational theater isn't just a way to be funny. For her, it was a way to organize people, manage creativity, and ultimately to lead.
So let's rewind. To do this right, we have to start in Massachusetts. Born in Newton, 1971, but she was raised in Burlington.
Yeah, blue-collar roots. Her parents, Eileen and William, were both school teachers.
And there's this one piece of advice from her dad that feels like a Rosetta Stone for her entire career.
I was just about to bring that up. It's this specific psychological foundation being laid right there. He told her explicitly to break social protocols and take risks.
That is a wild thing to tell a young girl in the 70s and 80s. I mean, usually the messaging is the exact opposite. Be nice, don't make waves.
Right. It basically gave her permission to be disruptive. Most girls are taught to be polite, to be quiet, to, smooth things over. She was instructed to do the opposite, and you see that at Boston College, where she graduates in 93. She joins the improv troupe there, My Mother's Fleabag.
Which is a great name.
An iconic name. But look, that was just the warm-up. The real pivot point, the place where everything changes for her, is the move to Chicago.
The Chicago Crucible.
Yeah.
We talk about this a lot in comedy history. But why was it so essential for her specifically? Why not just go to LA and, try to get a commercial agent or something?
Because Chicago in the early 90s was where the literal theory of comedy was being rewritten. She wasn't just, waiting tables and being broke, though she was definitely doing that.
Right.
She was studying at Improv Olympic, which is now just called IO, under Charna Halpern and the legendary Del Close.
Del Close. Okay, we need to pause on him. If you aren't a deep comedy nerd, you might not know the name, but he is. He's basically the Stanislavski of improv comedy.
He is the godfather, 100%. Before Del Close, improv was mostly like a short games. Think whose line is it anyway?
Fun, but not like an art form.
Exactly. Del Close championed the Herald. Now, this is a long-form structure. It's a 30-minute piece, completely made up on the spot with recurrent themes, callbacks, and intersecting storylines. It requires a massive amount of intellect and memory to pull off.
It sounds incredibly stressful. I mean, you aren't just trying to be funny in the moment. You're trying to co-write a 3-act play in real time with 5 other people who are also making things up.
And that is why it requires what he called group mind. That is the key term here. Group mind means you as a unit are more important than you as an individual. The absolute first rule is make your scene partner look like a genius.
So it's about support.
It's all about support. If you drop a line, I don't mock you for it. I justify it. I weave it into the reality we're building. Amy Poehler absorbed this at a cellular level. It's never about the solo win. It's always about the collective win.
This is also where the most important creative partnership of her life begins. She walks into a room at Improv Olympic and meets Tina Fey.
Can you imagine being in that room? Charna Halpern, who ran the theater, said she saw them do a scene together and just knew. She immediately put them on a house team. And then they both got placed in the same touring company for Second City.
So they're spending hours in a van together, driving through the Midwest, long before anyone has any idea who they are.
Exactly. But while Second City was the establishment, Poehler was already looking to build something of her own. This is where we see the birth of the Upright Citizens Brigade, or UCB.
The UCB-4. Amy Poehler, Matt Besser, Ian Roberts, and Matt Walsh.
They formed in Chicago in '91, but the real strategic brilliance was the decision to move the entire operation to New York in 1996.
Which, again, was so risky. New York was a stand-up town. It was Seinfeld. It was struggling comics at the Comedy Cellar. Improv was seen as this weird, artsy theater game. It definitely wasn't cool.
And they forced New York to pay attention. They set up shop in a former strip club on West 22nd Street.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And they didn't just perform. This is the key. They built a school. They industrialized the teaching of the Herald. By 2011, their own data showed they had 8,000 students a year passing through their system in New York and LA.
8,000 students. That's not a troupe. That's a university.
It's a university. And it created a farm system for the entire entertainment industry. If you look at the writers' rooms for The Daily Show, Broad City, Silicon Valley, they're all populated by UCB grads. Poehler didn't just want a job in the industry. She wanted to own the pipeline.
Right.
She understood that if you control the training ground, you shape the future of comedy itself.
So she owns the underground comedy scene in New York. But eventually, the mainstream comes calling. We know Tina Fey had been trying to get her onto Saturday Night Live for years.
And the timing of her arrival it's heavy. She joins in September 2001. Her very first episode is the first show back after the 9/11 attacks.
I just can't imagine the pressure there. The country's in mourning, New York is completely devastated, and you're the new girl, and your job is to try and make people laugh.
And she didn't just survive it, she set a record. She was promoted from featured player to full cast member in her very first season.
For context, for everyone listening, that almost never happens. Usually you spend, 2 years in the background just trying to get one sketch on the air?
Only Addie Murphy had done it before her. She was the first woman to ever earn that distinction. And it just speaks to her readiness. She walked in with 10 years of intense Chicago training. She wasn't figuring out how to write sketches. She was already a fully formed machine.
And the range of characters was just immediate. You had the hyperactive Caitlin shouting, "Rick, Rick, Rick." At Seth Meyers, you had the one-legged reality show contestant Amber.
Yes.
But the whole dynamic of the show shifted when she got behind the Weekend Update desk.
2004. Weekend Update. She co-anchors with Tina Fey. And this is a massive signal change for the industry. You have two women in suits delivering the hard jokes. It shifted the center of gravity of SNL at that time, along with Maya Rudolph, Kristen Wiig. It really became a female-driven show for that era.
And that all culminated in the 2008 viral explosion.
The Sarah Palin-Hillary Clinton sketch.
It's genuinely impossible to overstate how big that moment was. I remember people who had never watched a single episode of SNL in their lives quoting it at work.
It was the biggest viral video of 2008 by a huge margin.
Yeah.
But you have to look at the subtext. It wasn't just a funny impression. You had Faye as Palin and Poehler as Clinton, and they were using the sketch to have this very meta conversation about sexism in politics.
Right. They were addressing the boners comment, the media bias.
All of it. It was incredibly sharp satire wrapped in these brilliant impressions. And Poehler's portrayal of Clinton wasn't just a caricature. It was this hyper-competent, almost tragically capable woman who was just constantly frustrated by the spectacle around her. There's a real humanity to it.
Her exit from SNL was just as dramatic as her entrance. It's October 2008, and she's incredibly pregnant.
The stories from that week are genuinely chaotic. Our sources say she was rehearsing right up until the day before the show. She's due at any moment.
And then, on air, Seth Meyers has to tell the audience that she's literally in labor.
Yes. And at the goodnights, Maya Rudolph and Kenan Thompson start singing "Can't Take My Eyes Off You" to her as this tribute. It just showed how much the cast adored her. She wasn't just another star on the show. She was the glue.
She does come back briefly for the finale to sing "Goodnight Saigon" with Will Ferrell, which is an amazing moment. But the chapter is closed. Now, usually this is the danger zone for SNL alumni. You either become, Will Ferrell, or you kind of disappear.
And Poehler pivots to Pawnee, Indiana. Parks and Recreation.
Created by Greg Daniels and Michael Shear, who knew her from her time writing at SNL. And they wanted her so badly, they basically broke the network production schedule.
Yeah, that story is incredible. NBC had a post-Super Bowl debut slot lined up for Parks and Rec, which is, the biggest launch pad you can possibly get.
That's golden ticket.
And they gave it up. They pushed the whole show back just to wait for her to finish her maternity leave. That's not just wanting an actor. That's believing the entire show rests on her shoulders. That's leverage.
But we need to analyze Parks critically because it did not work right away. If you go back and watch season 1, there is a problem.
The Leslie problem.
The Leslie problem.
Right.
In season 1, Leslie Knope was written as, essentially, a female Michael Scott from The Office. She was a bit ditzy, kind of deluded, and the core joke was that she thought she was really important, but she wasn't.
And audiences didn't really like her. I remember finding her a little sad. You pitied her. It's hard to root for someone who is purely the butt of every joke.
Exactly. So between season 1 and season 2, the writers and Poehler made a very specific, very high-level adjustment. They didn't really change her personality. She was still a hyper-enthusiastic steamroller.
Right. They changed her competence. They decided, what if she is actually the smartest, hardest-working person in the room, and it's the cynical town that's the problem?
And that changes everything. That's the competence porn aspect of the show. We love watching her because she is so good at her job, and she cares so much.
It allowed the show to become this incredibly optimistic look at local government, at democracy itself. The Peabody Awards even cited it for exploring the good side of American democracy. It became hopeful.
And culturally, it just left this massive footprint. I mean, Galentine's Day.
Galentine's Day, February 13th. Ladies celebrating ladies.
That came from one episode in season 2. And it has completely transcended the media it came from. You can buy Galentine's Day cards at Target now. My friends and I celebrate it.
That is insane cultural penetration, creating a real-world holiday that exists entirely outside of the fiction. It just speaks to how desperate audiences were for a depiction of positive, truly supportive female friendship on screen.
She finally won a Golden Globe for the role in 2014, which felt long overdue. But she wasn't just reciting lines. She was in the writer's room. She was directing.
Oh, yeah. She wrote The Debate, which many people, myself included, would argue is the best episode of the entire series. It's perfectly structured.
So good.
And she co-wrote the series finale, One Last Ride. The show's producer, Dan Gore, had this great quote. He said that if Amy Poehler submitted a script blindly with no name on it, she would be hired immediately in any writer's room in Hollywood. She just understands story structure.
And on set, she maintained that group mind ethos from her improv days. We found all these reports of impromptu dance parties in the makeup trailer just to keep everyone's energy up during long shoots.
It's the no assholes policy. It's pure UCB theory. If the ensemble feels safe and happy and supported, the comedy is looser, it's better. She managed the set like she was captaining an improv troupe. It creates a space where risks can be taken because you know the team has your back if you fall.
So while Parks and Rec is running and becoming this beloved institution, she's also quietly building the next phase of her career.
Kite Productions.
Yes.
It was founded way back in 2001, but it really ramps up in the 2010s. And this is where we see Poehler the mentor, Poehler the producer. She isn't just looking for vehicles for herself anymore. She's actively looking for the next generation of weirdos.
And we have to talk about Broad City.
It's the perfect example. Abby Jacobson and Ilana Glazer were making this little web series. They were, of course, UCB alumni.
Of course.
Poehler saw their stuff, recognized that truth and comedy flavor, and she used her considerable clout to get them a show on Comedy Central. She executive produced it. She appeared in the web series finale, but she didn't try to change their voice. She just gave them a bigger platform.
She amplified them.
She amplified them. It's that improv rule again. Make your scene partner look like a genius.
And then there's Russian Doll on Netflix.
That origin story is just fascinating. Apparently, Poehler was joking around with Natasha Lyonne one day and told her she was the oldest girl in the world, meaning she had this kind of weary, ancient soul, you know, and that one joke sparked the entire idea for a character who keeps dying and reliving the same night over and over.
Which is such a complex, dark, layered show. It's not ha-ha funny in a traditional sitcom way at all.
And that proves Poehler isn't just interested in simple punchlines. She's interested in complex female experiences. Look at Difficult People, which she produced for Hulu. It was their very first scripted series.
They know that.
Or Moxie, the film she directed in 2021 about a teen feminist revolution at a high school. She's consistently drawn to stories about women pushing back against the system.
And the documentary Lucy and Desi in 2022. That one felt really personal.
It won 2 Emmys. And what she did there was so smart. She got access to all these private home audio tapes of Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz. She wanted to show the business acumen of Lucille Ball, not just the clowning.
The architect behind the comedian.
Exactly. The woman running Desilu Productions, who was also willing to fall down in a vat of grapes for a laugh. You can't help but feel that Poehler sees herself in that lineage. She's building her own Desilu.
Speaking of falling down for a laugh, We have to look at her filmography, because even while she's building this entire empire, she's still doing things like Mean Girls.
The cool mom. Mrs. George, an iconic performance.
The math on this is one of my favorite pieces of Hollywood absurdity.
It is truly wild. She was only 7 years older than Rachel McAdams, who played her daughter, Regina George. 7 years.
That math always hurts my head every time I hear it.
It's ridiculous, but she sold it. She sold it because she committed to the bit 100%. She was filming that while she was still a cast member at SNL. She flies out to Toronto. She puts on the plastic boob inserts, the pink tracksuit. She's got the little chihuahua. She is embodying a tragedy of a person, but she makes it hilarious.
And then there's Inside Out, the Pixar juggernaut. She voices Joy.
And there is a little nugget in the credits here that people often miss. She didn't just voice Joy, she received a screen credit for additional dialogue.
Oh, interesting.
So even inside the Pixar machine, which is notoriously pixel perfect and rigid in its process, she was improvising, she was riffing, she helped shape who the character of Joy was on a fundamental level. And that movie grossed, what, $857 million?
And she came back for Inside Out 2 in 2024, which was also huge. But I love her comedy team-ups, her collaborations with Tina Fey. Baby Mama opened #1 at the box office.
Yeah.
Then Sisters.
Yeah.
And, of course, the one that started it all for her film-wise, Wet Hot American Summer.
Wet Hot is the ultimate UCB reunion movie. It cost like $1.8 million to make. It was a commercial flop that became this massive cult classic. It's just the pure spirit of let's all get together at a summer camp and make something weird. It proves that commercial success isn't the only metric for her. Sometimes it's just about the hang.
Okay, so let's pivot to the present. We're in early 2026. What does the last year or so look like for her?
Well, the SNL connection is clearly unbreakable. Just this past October, in 2025, she hosted the second episode of season 51.
Right.
And that date, October 11, 2025, was significant. It was the exact 50th anniversary of the first ever SNL episode.
Wow.
Lorne Michaels bringing her back for that specific slot is a statement. It says, "You are one of the pillars of this institution."
And as we mentioned at the top, the conquest of audio.
Podcasting is just such a natural evolution for an improviser. It's audio improv, essentially. She experimented with the scripted comedy podcast Say More with Dr. Sheila, but good hang with Amy Poehler winning that Golden Globe.
Yeah.
It shows that people just want to hear her talk. They want that intimacy.
I want to look at the person behind this machine. We mentioned her parents and their influence, but what about her own values that she's putting out into the world?
She founded Smart Girls at the Party way, way back in 2008. It started as a web series before YouTube was even this huge thing we know today. And the motto was, change the world by being yourself.
Which feels very earnest. Very Leslie Knope, actually.
It is. And it's authentic. It was eventually acquired by Legendary Entertainment, but she kept the creative lead. She did these Ask Amy segments that were incredibly vulnerable. She'd talk about anxiety, friendship breakups, self-worth. And that earnestness translates directly to her activism. She doesn't just, show up to galas and pose for pictures. She worked directly with the National Domestic Workers Alliance.
That's just for the California Domestic Worker Bill of Rights, right?
Passed in 2013. This is legislation that ensures things like overtime pay for nannies and caregivers. That is granular policy work. It impacts the livelihoods of thousands of mostly immigrant women. She went to Sacramento. She lobbied. She used her visibility to shine a light on invisible labor.
She wrote about a lot of this in her memoir, Yes Please, back in 2014.
A New York Times bestseller. And what's great about that book is she's really honest about her failures, too. She writes a lot about the importance of the apology. She acknowledges that you will screw up. And, she had that public controversy in 2016 regarding water usage.
The drought.
Yeah, right. California was in the middle of a severe drought. And a report came out that she was fined for using over 170,000 gallons of water at her Beverly Hills home in one billing cycle.
That is a lot of water.
It is. It was a bad look. And it's an important reminder that these figures aren't perfect saints. They have blind spots. But in the book, she discusses the limitations of physical appearance, the intense struggle of her divorce. She was married to Will Arnett for over a decade. They have 2 sons. And the difficulty of balancing being the cool mom with being an actual mom. She does pretend to have it all figured out.
And she's been fairly private since then. We know she dated Nick Kroll for a while, and more recently Joel Lovell, but she seems to prioritize the work and the ensemble above the whole celebrity tabloid game.
And that brings us right back to the synthesis of her career. If you look at the UCB4, the women of SNL, the cast of Parks and Rec, or the staff at Kite Productions.
Wait, I saw a stat on that. Is it true that the staff was all female?
As of a 2019 Hollywood Reporter profile, yes. The staff at Kite was entirely female, and that is intentional design. That's architecture. She isn't just asking for a seat at the table. She is building her own table and filling all the seats with women she wants to empower. She is creating the environment she wishes she had when she was starting out.
It all goes back to that first improv rule. Support. Make your partner look good.
Precisely. By making everyone around her funnier, smarter, and more confident, she elevates the entire product. She has completely redefined what a boss can look like in Hollywood. It's less of a dictator yelling from the top and more of a team captain in the middle of the huddle.
So here's the thought I think we should leave you with. We started with her father's quote, right?
Yeah.
Break social protocols and take risks.
Right.
Think about how she has consistently used comedy to do exactly that. The character of Leslie Knope started as a joke, a bureaucrat that we were meant to laugh at. She ended up as a legitimate role model that we laughed with. Amy Poehler started her career playing the crazy little sister characters at UCB and SNL, and she ended up running a media empire.
She broke the protocol that said funny women can't also be powerful producers. And she did it without becoming the villain. She proved that you can climb all the way to the top by pulling other people up with you. It's the group mind, scaled up to an entire industry.
So if you haven't watched Parks and Rec in a while, go back and watch Season 2 with fresh eyes. You can actually see the confidence pivot happen in real time. It's fascinating. Or check out her new award-winning podcast.
It is definitely worth the deep dive.
Thanks for listening. We'll see you on the next one.